Every year, thousands of missionaries serving all over the world return home from honorable missions. They've experienced difficulties, shared testimony, and witnessed miracles. And who will hear those amazing stories? A few hundred people over the course of their life? These are stories that uplift. These are stories that encourage. These are stories that inspire. On Return with Honor, we aim to share these stories with the world. Welcome to Return with Honor. Hello and welcome to Return with Honor. I'm Chuck James.
And I'm Christine James. Tonight we are interviewing Sam Hickman, and we're very excited to have you on here. How are you tonight, Sam?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Wonderful. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
No, we're really happy that you were willing to come on the show, and excited to hear some of your stories and some of your experiences, and hopefully we'll be able to share this with lots and lots of people so they can hear those wonderful experiences. So let's just start off with where and when did you serve?
So I served November 2013 to November 2015. So I've been home for a little over 3 months now, and I served in the Great California Bakersfield Mission, which takes in all of the Bakersfield, Southern California, the Bakersfield area, Palmdale, all the way up to Mammoth, which includes North Edwards. So,
place near and dear to our hearts.
Yep.
So, what was kind of one of the biggest kind of culture shocks, I guess, for you as you entered the mission field?
Culture shock wise, so I served in the States, so it wasn't. I still had a car. I was in a car for like 20 months of my mission. So still got to go shopping at Walmart. But I think probably one of the hardest things was especially when I got sick on the mission, it was hard not having your mom around and stuff like that. It was like your companion tried to stay as far away from you as he could not to get sick. So it was really just you're on your own, figure it out. If you run out of money, have fun eating taco ramen type of thing.
Yeah.
Which I guess that was probably the biggest culture shock. So culture shock wise, I probably didn't have as major of an experience as somebody that went to a third world country, but that was about it.
Okay, no, that's fair. I'm sure there are some little differences, but nothing that was too big or significant. But I think you're right. There are some things just by being a missionary that are different from the experiences that you had before the mission. Life is just a little bit different, and you got to get used to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
So what was kind of the biggest surprise for you when you got into the mission field?
The biggest surprise, I was expecting pretty much everything that happened. I guess the biggest surprise is I didn't really anticipate what it was going to be like to live with a companion and have to be next to someone for 24 hours a day. And so that was probably the weirdest thing that happened. I was going out and talking to people wasn't that hard to do for me. Getting up on time, studying, going to bed, none of that. Talking to the members came easy, but really it was the fact that this guy was with you all the time, and it was kind of weird. Eventually, you gotta figure out something to talk about after a few weeks because the conversation starts to run dry.
No, I think that is probably one of the biggest challenges for every missionary, because even if you grew up in a big family like I did, where you had a sibling that shared a room with you, or you feel like you never got time alone, you really do. And then when you get on your mission, you realize, man, you don't really have any time alone because you're with that companion 24/7.
I was going to say, even you and I don't spend 24/7 together.
Right. Yeah. Even when you're married, you don't spend that much time together like you do when you're on. So,
Yep.
What was your favorite new food and or the worst?
So my answer is Mexican food for both. So there's quite a big Hispanic population in Southern California. Mm-hmm. So I gotta say, some of the best things I ate were authentic Mexican food. The dollar tacos, you can get those taco trucks on it. Every time you turn the corner, there's another one. But then there was also quite a few times where someone would say they were making authentic Mexican food, and we would go over, and it was probably like it had no flavor. It was pure spice, just meant to like make you want to like die type of food. And so there was sometimes it was the best meal, and then also Mexican was probably also like the worst meal. Some of those Mexican soups are kind of iffy. So
Yeah, I could see that. Definitely, it has the full spectrum of delicious to make you want to die. So I think
yes.
that's pretty good. What was your biggest challenge for you getting on your mission?
The biggest challenge. There were a lot. Like, I had a job. I saved up money. We had quite a few family members helping me out. I guess everything seemed to go pretty smoothly. And that's probably because my older sister left on her mission about 2 months before to Argentina. So my mom had it down, like what needed to happen. But I think on a more kind of spiritual note, I think it was kind of getting ready and kind of saying goodbyes, like that you weren't going to see these people for a long time, and that it was kind of hard to let go. I had a really good group of friends here in the singles board. I was really involved. I was hanging out with people every night. So I guess kind of just that sacrifice of it's that you really are leaving something fun behind. Like, I was having fun. I was hanging out all the time. So I think it's just really that you have to make that choice to give that time to the Lord and realize that it's not all about you, that you're not just going so you can learn something or have a great time. It's so that you can do what the Lord wants you to do.
So it's really around that commitment piece.
I think the commitment of saying, yes, I'm going to do this. Because until you go into the MTC, you could always say no, but there's always, and it's kind of, I guess I would lie if I say it didn't just hang out in the back of my mind a little bit. Like, do I really want to do this? Like, that's a long time. I don't know if I'm ready and stuff like that. So
with that, what was there a moment when that changed for you, or how did you finally come to terms with that and really decide, yeah, this is what I'm doing?
When I walked into the MTC, to be honest, and that's when I finally, walking into the MTC, it was probably more like getting on the plane. It was like, okay, there's no going back. It's like, you gotta go through it now to get back home. But I think it's just always kind of like, I gotta do it. I know I do. But I guess, and that's probably what the adversary, he puts that thought there. But it probably is that trial of you're not old enough, especially because with the age change, I'd been 18 for 3 months, so you're not old enough, you don't know anything, nobody's going to want to listen to you type of thing. So I guess, but once I really entered the MTC is when that thought kind of went away, I guess. Okay. So, yeah. But
no, that's good. And I think that is something that a lot of people do struggle with is, coming to terms with, hey, this is a big commitment and you got to commit to it. So that's great. How about on the mission? Once you got on the mission, what was kind of your biggest challenges there?
So probably the greatest blessing and the greatest trial were also the companions again. And also just kind of other missionaries in general. Everybody has their own idea of what's the best way to do it. You and your companion won't always agree on what you should teach for a lesson. But they're also the greatest support to have when you're down or you don't want to go track for the next hour like you had planned. It's a lot easier just to go back to the apartment and sit there. So, but it's definitely trying to figure everything out and trying to just deal with all the things that you have to get done. I guess they do a great job of making sure that the only thing you focus on is missionary work. They they pay for everything. They make sure all the bills are taken care of, that you're taken care of, and that all you need to worry about is sharing the gospel. But that can get kind of stressful when that's the only thing on your mind. So, and then I always thought I had the best idea, but that doesn't always work out. So it was just trying to figure out how to work with someone, I guess, might be the best way to put it. And so there were times I would be sitting in a lesson, I would have thought, well, I think we should have answered that question that way. But then it actually ended up being what my companion said ended up being the best thing that could have been said. So I guess humility plays a big part in that, and you learn humility as you go along. But that was probably one of the biggest challenges, was figuring out how to work with someone. And again, 24/7, not you just go to work and you have to figure it out for a couple hours. It's 24/7. How do you work with this person in every conversation you have, every missionary phone call and stuff like that, every texting conversation that you have with your investigators, you have to do it together.
No, that's great. I think that is definitely one of the challenges, is how do you get along with somebody that you never knew until suddenly you're living with them 24/7.
Mm-hmm. It's like, when did you two meet? About a week ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great point you're making, though. It also is, not only is it a challenge, but it's a way to protect you too. Because how easy would it be to do something wrong if you didn't have to check in with your companion all the time?
Exactly. Exactly. So. I had great companions, and some of them turned out to be some of my best friends, and so.
Can you share any experiences with us that increased your faith?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, there's a lot of them, so I'll try and narrow it down into a couple. I think with me, it was very interesting. I had a lot of the first part of my mission, I had a lot of success, but I never got to stick around for it. So there were a lot of people I taught that had gotten baptized, but I just was never in the area. I would go to an area, there wouldn't be a lot going on, and then I would work on it, get it to the point where we were about to have a baptism or two, and then I get transferred. So it wasn't until 14 months out that I finally actually was in an area for one of my baptisms, and that was a really cool experience. We had this girl named Brianna, and we had talked to her a little bit and taught her in October. Me and my companion did, and then about 2 hours after the lesson, she sends us a text and tells us not to come back.
Oh.
And so time goes on, and me and my companions stay together through actually 2 more transfers. And we're at the beginning of our 3rd transfer together, and we run into Brianna again at a member's house for a Christmas activity they were putting on. And we were able to talk to Brianna again and actually meet with her again. And then from the time we met with her the second time, for the first time, it was about 5 weeks later she was baptized. So that was a really cool experience, just to see, because I don't think it would have worked out the same if it wasn't the exact same companionship and just the right place at right time. She needed to meet with us in October to know that she can meet with us again in December, when a few things in her life had finally changed, and she was just ready at that point. So that was really cool to see. That definitely built my faith, and those lessons were just amazing. So, and then I think one of the cool after that happened, I think I got transferred into this podunk place called North Edwards, which was actually great, which was actually the most successful area on my mission. And from a statistics standpoint, is one of the most, in the year of 2015, when I got to serve there, was one of the most successful areas in the mission.
Wow.
So it was definitely a great place to serve. I loved it out there. But there were people that were just magically coming out of woodworks that I don't know how, but I contribute more to the members, because these people had taught to missionaries before. They were 10, 5-year processes that So who knows how many missionaries they had taught to. I guess I just got lucky and was able to be there for them, and was able to be the last missionary that taught them until they got baptized. So
kind of like you when you hit the ball out of the park, but someone else got to run around the bases and have the success. They did that for you, right? They hit the ball over the fence, but you got to come and hit home plate. So
yeah, definitely. There were quite a few. It was for example, Wayne Glass, who you two both know, for example, he had talked with missionaries for about 10 years, and then the first lesson I had with him, he said he knew it was all true and wanted to get baptized. So it was that one. It was just like, well, that makes life easy. And then we had just a lot of other missionaries who I knew some of them that stood there, and they did a lot of work and a lot of hard work to get these people to where they were at, so we could take the next steps with them. But that was just cool to see, and finally to be on kind of the running around the bases end of things, and to actually touch on home plate instead of just start there.
Well, we really enjoyed having you in our home and in our town. You were a really fun person, and you were a great example for our children. And so we wanted to thank you for that, specifically for coming out on your mission and being willing to come here.
Absolutely.
Thank you. That will make my mom happy.
Yeah.
Any other stories you wanted to share?
I could share stories for hours, so I don't want to have a 10-hour show for you, but I think I'll share one last story, and this was actually at the beginning of my mission. There was this girl named Jackie who her family had taught to the missionaries. Her brother had gotten baptized, and she knew she needed to. She just never wanted to take that step, and then she got a DUI and kind of hit rock bottom there for a little while. And then me and my companion went over and we talked to her, and that was probably the only time on my mission that I kind of had that outer body experience that a lot of missionaries talk about, where it's really like you're sitting at one place, but you can see yourself sitting next to yourself, and it's the Spirit is saying everything for you, and it's just your mouth moving. And it was just everything she needed to hear. And so that was super cool. And then she ended up not being able to get baptized for another year.
Wow.
And because of the DUI and being on probation and church policies. So I was long gone by the time she was able to get baptized. But that was just a really cool experience. And the fact that she was able to persevere and keep going to church for a year and keep meeting with the missionaries for a year.
Absolutely.
To finally get baptized. So that was kind of like that one moment on my mission where it was just like, I know for 100% surety that the Spirit has like taken over my mouth, and it's not me at all. And so I received spiritual promptings and thoughts that came into my head throughout my whole mission. But that was the one time where it was like, this is all the Spirit. I know I'm doing nothing.
Awesome.
That's a great experience. And also I think, a lot of things you've touched on is that this isn't always like an overnight process for people, that there are things that people have to, sometimes they have to just learn and accept. And sometimes it's things that they have to change in their own lives before they can really progress and move forward. But all along the way, missionaries, the Lord, members of the church, they're all there to help support and get them through that. And it sounds like that's what happened with her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. There were a lot of hands and missionaries and members went into that process too. She was meeting with missionaries a year before even I showed up to her house with my companion. So there was a lot of work goes into all these people that I guess we don't really see. Of course, when a missionary is there, he only sees the time that he's there for, which anywhere from 6 to 18 weeks on average. But there's so much that goes into these people's conversion process, and from the very moment they even had a thought about religion to the time they enter the water of baptism, and then beyond that too. So I guess that's probably that shout out to missionary that you never really know what's going on in people's lives. And especially I saw it on my mission, like with Brianna and other people, that God is always doing things. His hands in everybody's life. He knows everything going on. So you just have to do the best you can when the opportunity is there. And if it doesn't work out, just keep going, and he's working on it. So you just do the best you can on your end.
Got to have trust, right?
Still working on that part too. So
that's a great example. Great stories there.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely one of the best experience I had in my life. Probably the best experience.
Yeah.
Because I haven't been married yet, so I can say that.
It's always great to have that, and my kids love it. It shows them the faith that he had while he was on his mission. And I know just listening to your story just now, I know it's helping my son Charles, who's about ready to leave. He's leaving in about 3 weeks, and so I think that these things need to be shared and so that people know how God works. So thank you. It's awesome.
Absolutely.
Definitely, no problem.
So were there any stories you refrained from writing home about, like the time you almost got killed by a gang or something like that?
Yeah, there were a few. Of course, my mission, like all other mission, has the sketchy parts, and I guess there was one that happened right at the end, and this is the one where I actually called the police. So, me and my companion had talked to this guy named Ramon. Okay, it was Ramon, and he made it very clear that his name was Ramon. And so we were walking down the street one day, and he was drunk and had a grocery bag full of empty beer cans, and so we're like, okay, and he waves us over. So we talked to him we humor him and stuff like that, and it was fine, and we left, right? Everything was fine. And then about 2 weeks later, we're walking down the street again, and the sister missionaries were in our area meeting with some members, and they were they were having dinner with them, finishing up their dinner. And so they were outside, and so we went over and we were asking them a question about a couple of people, just talking, and Ramon walks up behind us, right? And everything's fine. He's drunk again, but everything was fine. He was weird like he was before, but nothing too bad. And then the sisters were like, okay, we're going to leave now. And for some reason that made him really mad. And he just freaked out. This is the time I had my companion from New Zealand. So he was like 6'3" Samoan. My companion was. So we weren't that worried about like getting in a fist fight or anything like that, because he was probably about a butt 60, like 160 pounds maybe. Like he wasn't that big of a guy. But he was right up in my face, like our noses were pretty much like touching, and he was swearing and everything. And then he crosses the street, and then he crosses the street again back over to us, and he's like heading towards the sisters. So I stepped in between him and the sisters, and I don't think he liked that very much. I don't really know why. But then he started swearing at the sisters, said he was going to take them hostage and stuff like that.
Wow.
So that was interesting. And so then he crosses the street. We think he's going to leave, and he crosses the street again. And I was like, oh, great. Here we go. And this whole time, I'm just waiting to get punched in the face. But it never happened. And so he's swearing all the way down the street. And then I called the police, and the police showed up. Of course, the police are like, oh, there's nothing we can do about it. And I was like, okay, no problem. Called my mission president, told him what happened. He just kind of laughed and said, be careful. So... yeah, but that was definitely one of the stories I didn't tell my mom about until I got home, of course.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing.
Yeah, I wonder how the sister missionaries felt and if they told their parents about that one. I don't think I would.
I don't know. I know one of the sisters has now gone home. I don't know about what the other sister did, but it was quite the talk around the ward, kind of about how this crazy drunk guy, like threatened the missionaries, and so quite a few members were laughing at it. So it was all fun.
Yeah.
And our ward mission leader at the time was a LA County Sheriff deputy.
Oh.
He talked to him. He's like, next time just call me. Me and my partner will come over if we're on duty, and we'll handle it. And I was like, okay, sounds great. Like, no worries. But we never saw him again. So
Really?
yeah, never saw him again.
Huh. Yeah, those are the experiences that are more funny in retrospect rather than when they're happening at the moment, right?
Oh yeah, no, I was ready to have the fight of my life, like, but
I'm sure your heart was pumping too, you know.
oh yeah, it was going, but it was all fun, and then we were actually able to get a ride home from a member that night. That way, we wouldn't run into him again.
That's
so
good.
We got a ride home, went in, woke up the next morning, started reading our scriptures. It was back to the same old thing.
There you go.
Nothing changed.
That's what a mission is, right? You just keep moving and go back and do it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So, how has your mission changed the way you see the world, or how has it changed you?
Ooh. Now I have to talk about myself. Dang. I guess it definitely changed me. I think it's definitely. I have a better sense of what's really important, like making those choices over should you do this or should you do that, and definitely kind of prioritizing where I should spend my time and making sure that I do these certain things. And of course, I'm definitely busy. It feels like I only really come home to sleep. So definitely just trying to find time to do everything I want to do, and getting accepted into college, sign up for classes, getting a job. Right now I have a job, and now I'm looking for another job. I got a job on the side. I'm the ward mission leader in the singles ward, so I work closely with the missionaries. So that's taking up some time. And then I'm 20 years old, so I want to go hang out with all my friends. So there's some during the week sometimes I'm running off of like 4 to 5 hours of sleep a night, which yeah, Mom, I know I need to get more, but but it's definitely kind of just prioritizing, and it is hard. I've slipped up a little bit on making sure I read my scriptures and say your prayers and all that. The things that really need to happen, and you get so busy. And now it's kind of as a missionary, it was just so easy to always do that, and now it definitely takes a lot more effort to make sure that you keep on doing those things that you need to do. And so, but I think the mission also helps me now when I'm in those situations to take a step back and to realize that I need to slow down, or I need to stop doing this and start doing this. So definitely, I just kind of that maturity with my choices, I think, is what the mission helped with a lot. And then also spiritually, just I know more. I'm closer with my Heavenly Father, so therefore it helps me in those day-to-day choices on how to treat people, dealing with people. There's not the brightest people that I work with sometimes, so just being patient. And of course, I'm not perfect. Me and my little sister, we still go at it. So, but we're working on all that.
No, I think that's a really good point you bring up, that going on a mission really helps you see what the priorities are. And even though we're not going to be perfect and we're going to mess up every now and then, you always have that to reflect upon and say, I know what it's supposed to be like. I know what it's like to have that Spirit with me all the time, and to to be where I need to be. And so when you kind of feel yourself starting to drift, you have that anchor to kind of go back to and say, yeah, I need to kind of reprioritize and get things going the right direction. That's a great learning.
I was going to say, in the business world, people talk about it as if it was a shiny object syndrome. So you got to make sure that you're reading your scriptures and your prayers are your shiny object. That's always the thing that keeps you excited and happy. And all the other stuff can come too, but you always need to make sure that those important things are your shiny objects, that you're always always looking and facing that. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I think definitely the mission helps you focus on what the shiny objects are, and then it's your job to I think more importantly when I get off the mission is not I know what the shiny objects are, but I think it's more I gotta keep them shiny type of thing. I gotta make sure I'm putting in the wood to polish them and stuff like that in that sense, and making sure that the shiny object stays the shiny object, because the mission taught me what they were, so I just need to keep them as that.
No,
awesome.
Great point. Yeah. So, do you have any advice for those preparing for their missions?
I think definitely. I think one of the biggest things is to try and get out of your shell. Maybe go do something new, talk to new people. Kind of learn how to have new conversations, and then also go out with the missionaries. As you do that, as you learn to just talk with people, because most missionaries will, and if they've grown up in the church, they'll know the gospel, and the MTC and their first companion will teach them how to put that into words, but it's being comfortable with talking to people, and that's why going out with the missionaries and having those new conversations and building new relationships will really help them in that sense when they knock on the door and they got 10 minutes to try and teach this person something, and hopefully let them come back, or better yet, let them come inside and teach them right then and there.
That's great. What about for those who are already on their mission?
Just be obedient. Go out, work hard, follow the rules. It's our mission. My mission. We saw quite a few people kind of slip up, and it's not that the atonement's real. They can repent, but it's really sad to see a missionary that made a mistake and that didn't get to service full time because of that. And it really is just the best thing to do to be obedient. You look at the missionaries who actually really enjoy their missions and that go home and can't shut up about them are the ones that were obedient and always followed the rules. And no matter what happens, that there's the right thing and the wrong thing. And sometimes the right one might be the harder choice. And it is hard if there's a couple of them around you, a couple missionaries that aren't doing the right thing. It's tough to be the one that stands up and says no, but it's definitely worth it to say no and to do that.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think, our stake president often says that obedience, this is the advice he gives to missionaries that are going out, obedience brings blessings, strict obedience brings miracles. So, and I think that is what you see when you're on your mission, is that when you do that strict obedience, then that's when the miracles come, and that's what you want to see as a missionary. You want to be a part of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's definitely true that if you read the Book of Mormon, it says if you keep the commandments, you're going to prosper in the land. And so I think the Lord kind of has a funny idea, or we have a funny idea of what prosper actually means. We're expecting this great thing, but when you look back, you'll be really happy that you were obedient. I know the missionaries that I keep in contact with the mission, and I think everybody has a regret about the one time they were disobedient, and everybody wishes that they had 100% kept the rules to the T. And of course, you're gonna slip up, and you're gonna wake up late one day. I don't know a missionary who hasn't, but you gotta just keep going, and when you mess up, fix it right then and there. And I guess also talk to your mission president if you need to. He's there to help you, and if it's not anything huge, he'll be more than happy to help you out and give you suggestions and advice on how to improve your level of obedience.
That's great advice.
What would you recommend if you were a companion of someone who is struggling? What would you recommend for that person who was not struggling, being obedient, but who was a companion of one who was?
Okay. So I had a few of those. So the struggling companions, and you can't get mad at them, but you can't cut them any slack at all. You and it might be more of a burden on you to nag them, and maybe nade's not the right word, but to always kind of be pushing and saying, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. And and if they choose to change or not, that's up to them, but it's upon you to do everything you can to help them move on and kind of get out the door, because that's your job. Your job is to go share the gospel, but you have to have your companion with you. You can't go out there by yourself. So definitely lots of love and lots of encouragement, but then you can't cut them any slack, and you're gonna have you kind of gotta put your foot down with some of them and tell them that no, they have to do this. I remember I had a companion who kind of always wanted to go home early, and one day he had gotten up late, and we were late leaving the apartment, and so it was about 6 o'clock. He was like, "Are we going home for dinner yet?" I was like, "No, we gotta go see this person." Every time we got in the car, it was, "We going home yet?" And I was like, "No, we gotta go see this person, and now this person." And I just did it all the way up until it was 9 o'clock and time to go home. So I just kind of did it one thing at a time, but it all worked out, and so. And he appreciated it. We got along great, but he was just struggling a little bit with working from leaving the apartment all the way till 9 o'clock type of deal. So
yeah. So I think it's really following the example of the Savior. I think he would do those same kinds of things. Love the person, but the Savior never tells us it's okay to not do the right thing. He's always encouraging us to do it, even while he loves us. So that's a great example, great advice. So thank you for sharing that. How about for parents? Anything that you feel would be, one of the really important, or a couple really important things that parents can do to help prepare their young man or young woman for serving the mission?
I think definitely. I think parents do a great job. First of all, my parents did a great job. I think it's not really what my parents didn't do. It's what I wish they did more of. A lot more gospel conversations about kind of get into the details of it, especially like they understand it. They have a base knowledge. So teach them something new about it. Give them something that might blow their mind a little bit about the gospel. I remember when I was in the mission field and I was new, and I'd be studying my scriptures. I'd be reading Jesus the Christ, for example. When I finally got to do that, it was like, I had never thought about that before. And so I think a lot of that the parents can share with their kids, of giving them these experiences and amazing aha moments with the gospel that would make them that much more excited. So I think, and of course, everybody might have their own limits. Like, don't just talk about the gospel with your kids, but I think just a lot more gospel conversations would be great, where you get into the details. You talk about the stuff that isn't just the obvious answers, and a lot more of the symbolism of the gospel too. And I guess, and also take them to the temple as much as possible. When they can finally go, when they get their endowment taken out, just encourage them and always try and get them there as much as possible, depending on your circumstances, and before they go on their mission. And that will give them that much more time with you. And when they're preparing and they're kind of in that, because they're going to, like I said earlier in the show, they're going to have those thoughts in the back of the mind is, do I really need to do this? Am I ready for this type of idea? And as they do that, then, and as the parents are encouraging them the whole time, it'll make it, I don't want to say easier to say goodbye and give your mom that last hug for 2 years, but it'll definitely make them feel more comfortable with it. And when they're walking on that plane or walking into the MTC.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really good advice.
Love that.
So, is there anything we haven't asked you that you wanted to share?
No, this was great. I'm glad I took the time to do this. It's kind of a bittersweet thing. We remembering all these things from the mission and all these great times, and then realizing it's like, well, that's not my life anymore. But it definitely reminds me of all the great times I had, and it's nice to there were things I remembered doing this that I haven't really shared, just kind of like little bits and pieces of my mission where it's like, oh yeah, that was really fun, and that was really fun. Oh, I remember. It's like that was a crazy experience, and so it's nice to have those memories brought back to your mind, the forefront of your mind again. And it definitely, I felt the spirit here tonight, and maybe I need to do more to take what I learned on my mission and apply it in my life. And so I thank you for this opportunity to do all this, and I appreciate it. And I hope maybe I'll help you out a little bit and try and find some more return missionaries up here. I got a friend, and she comes home in about 15 days now, so we'll probably be able to get her on the show. She's in San Diego, California right now. So
great. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
I do have one more question before Chuck ends it. I haven't asked every interview, but I want to ask you. And I tell my kids all the time. I say, because I'm telling them to look for certain people that they want to marry, certain characteristics in people, and I say to them, you need to marry someone who loves God more than they love you. And so you've been serving for 2 years, putting God first, serving Him first. And so, can you share with us what kind of characteristics would someone have if they loved God more than anybody else, so that they can find that kind of person?
As soon as you started talking, somehow I knew. I was like, marriage is somehow involved with this question. And it was I was talking to, we have a family friend, and they have a 6-year-old daughter, and I was over there helping them set up a trampoline. She looked at me and she's like, you need to get married. So it's just funny that you would bring this up. And I think you're absolutely right. If you can find someone that puts God first, then they'll be that much more better of a person for you, obviously. So, and I think when I was at EFY, one of the teacher guys put it really well, that marriage is more about becoming the right person than finding that. So he said for us, it was all the boys, all the guys were in this room. He's like, for you, it's more about becoming the right man instead of finding that perfect like princess girl. So I think definitely just looking for someone that will when they have a calling, they're doing all they can to fulfill that. Not just kind of like for example, if the ladies ask the priest about, hey, have you done your home teaching for the month? And if the priest is like, I'm trying, I've called these 2 families, I set up an appointment with one of them, or if the priest is like, yeah, I'll get around to it. There's a big difference there, and so depending on what you're looking for, that's a good way to ask them about their calling and what they're doing in it. And I think that will be able to tell you a lot about the person and about their love for God. And then also, if for me at least, kind of looking around, if you want to see someone's love for God and their Savior Jesus Christ, watch what they do during the sacrament. I know in the singles world we have a little bit of a problem with all these young single adults and electronic devices, and so even during the sacrament a little bit. So if you can look at someone, you see if you see them pondering about the song or looking up a scripture on the atonement, or just with his eyes closed thinking about his Savior Jesus Christ, compared to the person scrolling through Facebook, tells you a lot about what type of this person. And then also, I guess there's always watch how they treat the people around them. I think is probably like, I know for girls they always talk about, if you want to see how a young man will treat you, watch how he treats his mother. Yeah. So I think it goes the same, just where when someone comes up, and if you're standing in a group and someone comes up and asks, hey, can you help me take down chairs real quick? If 2 of the young men are like, yeah, sure, no problem, and the other one's like, yeah, and then just doesn't go, that also tells you a lot about their willingness to serve and what their attitudes towards that is. And so I don't want to say these people are bad people for not doing these things or stuff like that, and they obviously have their own struggles that they deal with, but just kind of that all around, that's you want the person that will do those things, that will put the phone away during sacrament meeting, that will put energy into their calling and do it to the best of their ability, that is always willing to help out and to make sure they do more. Not that they just barely did enough, that they're doing as much as they can.
I love your answer. Yes, it was awesome. I'm going to make my kids listen to this recording for sure. And I also just wanted to say thank you so much. We still use your recipe that we made for you for your birthday dinner when you were here. It's our kids' one of their favorites now. So we want to thank you for that, as well as all your service and love that you shared while you were here. So. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And I would just like to say I have been on a date since I've been home, okay? And I'm going to BYU Idaho, so I'm working on it, okay? That's what my mission president, he's like, your next assignment is to get married now. Like, that's the next goal. And it was like, okay, let's slow down there. But so.
That's awesome.
I'll try and use my own answer a little bit for that, too.
There you go.
Good.
Yeah,
Good.
Be the right person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, great. Thank you so much for being on the show tonight. We really appreciated and enjoyed hearing your stories and your excitement. It's obvious, that you had a good experience on your mission and worked with some really good people. So thank you for being on the show, and thanks for sharing with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for having me. It was fun. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
Awesome.
All right. Well, tune in to our next episode when we're going to be interviewing actually 3 missionaries who are going to be, they're going to be going on their missions very soon. So Ben Barney, Hannah Nilsson, and our very own son, Charles James. So we're pretty excited about that. To check out past episodes of the show, you can visit our website, returnwithhonorshow.com, or subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you know someone who you think would be a great guest for our show, or if you are that person, let us know by sending us an email at rwhshow@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time on Return with Honor.